Everyone to the meeting, the council meeting on Wednesday the 4th of March. I would now like to welcome the Reverend Rowley Scott to open the meeting with a prayer.
Ngā mihi o te ata, tēnā koutou katoa. It's a real privilege for me to be here today. We've been in Dunedin since the second last day of December 1983 when I became the minister at Caversham Baptist Church, which I retired from in 2019. And for nearly 20 years I was the chaplain at John McGlashan College, where I taught Councillor Vandervis and Councillor Lund's sons. That was a more than pleasant experience, but unfortunately none of them played cricket. Now my wife and I have roots that go deep in terms of time. In 1878, her great-grandfather jumped ship and slept under a cabbage tree in Caversham Valley the first night he spent in New Zealand. So I suppose technically all her family are overstayers, and we're waiting for the ice people to come and pick us up. There were two mayors that year, and the same year my paternal grandmother was born at West Harbour. I don't know where the West Harbour birthing centre was. I don't think any of you were born there, but anyway, who knows. I note, Your Worship, that you are only the second female mayor, and I happen to know the other one because her husband was in the medical platoon with me at Otago Boys. And Trudy, my wife's great uncle, Will Tavner, was mayor from 1927 to 1929, although I did notice he was also the MP for South Dunedin from 1928 to 1931, holding several ministerial positions, which means that he was double dipping. He would be very much at home in today's landscape. Three of our parents were born here, and Trudy, my wife's greatest connection is that when Councillor Lund was 5, she was his Prima 2 teacher. Our older boys went to Boys High, our younger son went to King's, the girls went to Queen's. They've all graduated from either Otago University or Polytech. Of our 14 Dunedin grandchildren, the older 4 boys went to King's, and currently we have 7 granddaughters at Queen's, which make up 1.17% of the school roll. Two of our grandchildren graduates from Otago University, and 2 are currently there. So we're very grateful to the city at several levels. Firstly, the education institutions, the sporting facilities and other amenities, and for the grandparents, the cycle tracks on each side of the harbour and in other places also, to mention just a few. But there is one more. We are so grateful for the placement and number of disability parks. Trudy and I only have 2 good knees between us. Fortunately, we have 1 each. So I want to thank you for the part you play, you have played and will continue to play in the provision of facilities and services for the citizens of Dunedin. We are grateful. And just recently I had a taste of the efficiency of the Dunedin City Council, where we had a significant water problem outside our house. And I wrote to someone at the council, they came and looked at it, they were the second people to come that week. Fortunately it's not Surrey Street, and the council was very quick to point out that it wasn't our problem. The words that came to me as I scrolled through the work in front of you today and tomorrow were wisdom, consensus, and a sense of collegiality. Realising that not all of you share my Christian beliefs, I trust you'll feel included as I lead you in prayer. Let's pray. James wrote, "If you don't know what you're doing, pray to the Father. He loves to help. You'll get his help and won't be condescended to when you ask for it." Lord God, grant wisdom and discernment to all council members during this meeting. We pray for clarity in understanding the issues, ensuring that justice, fairness and community are considerations that form part of their decisions. Help them to navigate complex issues, of which there are many, avoid partiality, and achieve outcomes that honour one another and serve the citizens. Proverbs says, without good direction, people lose their way. The more wise counsel you follow, the better your chances. Lord, surround this counsel with wise advice, the ability to listen and then act. We understand that sound decisions result best from collaboration, while expressing diverse perspectives and aligning with ethical principles. May they seek advice when appropriate, value expertise and promote teamwork, that we as citizens may experience community stability while effective governance and protection from misguided choices. I pray today that you'll bless the willingness of these men and women to serve the city, and in doing so, may they feel they are making a worthwhile contribution to the many who have neither voice or opportunity to be heard. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. And could I just say one thing more, Your Worship? I had a dream on Monday night that the Western Force beat the Highlanders. And I couldn't work out, because I love the Highlanders and I try to see them as often as I can get up the steps. But then I was in Christchurch on Monday night, and it was the Bromley smell that got to me and distorted my thinking. I hope that's the case.
Thank you, Reverend Scott. We really appreciate your prayer. And I would like to acknowledge the sad passing of former Councillor Pate on the Neville Pate on Sunday the 1st of March. Neville was a well-liked and highly respected City Councillor during the 2013-2016 triennium. He was also an avid conservationist, photographer and prolific writer whose contributions have left a lasting legacy, and Neville's loss will be felt deeply across to lead the tributes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Kua hinga te te tōtara I te wānui a te tāne. A mighty tōtara has fallen. Neville Pate has been part of my governance journey since the beginning, appointing me to the local school board, and he has been my nominator through my 18 years in local government. He served on Dunedin City Council from 2013 to 16, as you've heard, and before that on the Otago Regional Council 1998 to 2007. During his time with the Dunedin City Council, he had the role of Deputy Chair of the Community and Environment Committee. Throughout his term, Neville was the Council's appointed representative on the Otago Peninsula Community Board, and that was when I was chair of that board. He worked closely with local residents and contributed meaningfully to community initiatives. Neville was appointed to a number of organisations that reflected his deep passion for the natural environment and heritage. He was a trustee of the Hereweka Harbour Cone Trust from 2014 to 2023, playing an important role in the stewardship of the significant landscape. He also served on the Otago Museum Trust Board and the Edinburgh Sister City from 2013. He received many honours, an NZM from the Queen. January last year, he was awarded the Antarctic Society's Conservation Trophy, which he was very proud of, and the Prime Minister's Award for Literary Excellence, recognising his outstanding contribution to non-fiction. And he was very proud of that as well. He was a prolific and highly respected author, and his books were frequently chosen as civic gifts. With their rich storytelling and strong sense of place, they represented Dunedin beautifully and made perfect gifts for visiting dignitaries. His knowledge of the city's history extended beyond the page. Neville also led occasional tours of the Edinburgh Room, where his deep understanding of the artworks and their stories was second to none, and those who joined his tours remember the experience as both insightful and warmly delivered, and I had the honour of taking over that role from him, and it was quite something to follow in his footsteps. His most recent contribution to this council's business was coming to the long-term plan last year, supported by his wife Mary, when he spoke about his long association with Peninsula Connection Te Awa Ōtākau. He was councillor appointed to the community board and from the area who helped to get the decision across the line to carry out that project, and that was in 2014-15. Neville made many contributions across so many areas of public life that reflected generosity, intellect and passion he brought to the Dunedin community, and he demonstrated the true, genuine meaning of service. He served his community, he served the city, and he served the country, and he did so with great humility. He was a very good man. Our heartfelt condolences to Mary, his wife, Sophie, his daughter, and son-in-law Hamish, and his beloved mokopuna, Gracie, Oscar, and Florence. He will be sadly missed.
Thank you, Councillor Gary, and I'd just like to add that I too knew Neville through work at the Otago Peninsula Trust and as an author for one of my favourite books, Seabird Genius, about Lance Richdale. He also had a lot of contributions towards Wild Dunedin. He wrote a book about Wild Dunedin, and now we have the Wild Dunedin New Zealand Festival of Nature, which he was a very key part of. His wisdom and advocacy will be sadly missed. He was a wonderful person to work with, and when we did talks, I organised talks for him to talk about Lance Richdale, and he was just amazing, and he's very sadly missed by our community. So I will just move through. There's no public forum. There will be an apology from Councillor Lee Vandervis for absence on the morning of the Thursday, the 5th of March 2026. So I will move that the Council accepts the apology for absence. Seconded, Deputy Mayor Lucas. All those in favour say aye. Against, that is carried. I just quickly need to check, are we going to do item C1 before item 6 or after item 6, the CEO's report?
No, we do the CEO's report. We do staffing first.
Okay. I'm just going to, we've just got a slight change to the agenda. So I will move that the Council confirms the agenda with the following alterations. That item C1, bargaining update, be taken before item 6, which is the CEO's report. That item 20, Dunedin Stadium Property Limited, debt repayment options, will be taken at 12 noon on Wednesday the 4th of March, today. And that item 23, rating method 26-27, be taken before item 21, engagement approach annual plan 26-27. So those are up on the screen, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lucas. This is basically to, we need to do the bargaining update before we go through the budgets. Dunedin Stadium property, that's to allow DCHL to come and visit us, and I believe that rating should take place before engagement because that makes a lot more sense. Does anybody anything else to comment? Therefore I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those against, abstentions, that is carried. So therefore I move that the Council, pursuant to the provisions of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, exclude the public from the meeting for consideration of item C1, bargaining options, for the reasons as set out in the agenda. And I will adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes for the cameras to leave. Is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor Lucas. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, I declare the motion is carried. order. We just need to do a technical thing that we did in non-public, but we need to do it in public. The declarations of interest. I presume there's been no changes since we did it in non-public. So I will move that the committee notes the elected members' interest register attached as attachment A and confirms the proposed management plan for elected members' interest. Notes the proposed management plan for the executive leadership team's interests. Seconded Deputy Mayor Lucas. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, abstentions. That is carried. And we'll move into public reports. So item 6, the CEO overview report. Ms Sandy Graham and Ms Carolyn Allen will speak to the report.
And if I might, Hayden as well, I think.
Yep, and Mr McAuliffe.
So, councillors, if I may, the report is reasonably self-explanatory, I hope, and sets out a range of the assumptions that go into the draft budgets. You'll see that we have described the rating increase in 2 parts, quite deliberately, in line with what a lot of other councils are now doing, because half of the water element of the rate increase will be excluded from any future rates cap, whereas the non-water rate won't be. We think it's useful now to start talking about them in that way, because they will be governed by quite a different framework. Apart from that, we're happy to take questions. We've got general managers here across all areas, group managers from key areas, and our finance team here.
So will I just ask you, because obviously there's a lot of different departments throughout the reports, would you like questions on those departments now or through the reports, or just whatever people feel?
Whatever people feel like. This is largely to provide that high-level view of the budgets as a starting point for that high-level discussion. But as you know from the agenda papers, each budget will come to you individually over the course of the next hour and day tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Do we have any questions? Oh, sorry, Carolyn.
That's right. I just wanted to add one more thing, if I could, to that separation between council and water services, because the 9-year plan has all of the budgets still combined. So there's one financial strategy for council. The water services delivery plan was approved by council in August after that 9-year plan was approved, and then approved by government on the 10th of November. And so now that is why we have a rate increase limit in the 9-year plan that doesn't separate out the two, but we're now required to separate out the two, just for clarification. And so we've made steps, as the Chief said, to try and show you how it might appear in future.
Thank you. I've got Councillors Ong, Vandervis, London, Chambers. Councillor Ong.
Thank you, Your Worship. My questions are on the debt side of things and also on the stadium debt. Can I ask these at this point? So,
You just one at a time,
okay,
please.
so the first question is, how much do we do at the moment in terms of inter-entity financing or lending? Because from the perspective, for example, of our stadium, now it can possibly be on lent to from the financially stronger or asset-backed entities within the group to facilitate what is required in terms of its lower cost of debt financing and its debt financing requirements that offset some of its financial burden. At the same time,
Is the question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Could I answer that question first?
Yeah.
So we have Dunedin City Treasury Limited, so they raise debt for the entire group. So that's all of the CCOs, including Dunedin Stadium Property Limited and DCC. So all of our debt for the group is raised through Dunedin City Treasury.
Are there constraints then that appear to have been reported on for our stadium itself in terms of the debt that can be offset from additional leeway that other entities in the council have to on-lend to them?
Are you asking on around paper 20? Is it because the stadium people will be in DCHL will be here at 12 o'clock? Are they better placed to answer that question?
Yes, I think if we could deal with the stadium debt at item 20.
Thank you. Have you got any questions, Councillor Ong, that don't relate to the stadium debt?
Not for the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Vandervis.
Regarding the separation of water services referred to just now, do we have clarity yet on whether stormwater is in or out?
Thank you, Councillor. We don't have clarity on whether stormwater is in or out of the rates cap.
Without that clarity, does that create some real issues for you in terms of budgeting?
Well, it may create issues for council dealing with addressing the rates cap. So at the moment, if Three Waters was all excluded, we know that we've indicated large rate increases are required in water services, including stormwater. So that would be potentially a problem if council needs to absorb those costs in stormwater, yes.
And a question for the Chief Executive. Pleased to see item 20 on page 17. The assumptions that we have, interest costs, rates, depreciation, impacts of inflation, etc., are all well and good, and they're well figured. Is there an additional assumption that most of the public of Dunedin can afford to keep paying rates that increase invariably now for many years at 3 times plus the rate of inflation?
Affordability is a consideration, Councillor.
Is it assumed, though, that we can keep raising the rates by 10-something%?
No, it's not assumed, Councillor, and as you know, the rate increases in the 9-year plan are not 10% every year.
Agreed. The ones that we've had have been, and the near ones also are. But I accept that it's not taken as a red assumption. Then, thank you.
I would note that we worked hard to reduce the non-water rate, albeit that there is an assumption in there about increased funding for the stadium that went straight onto that, took it from the non-water rate from 6.1 to 6.9, and the overall rate was also slightly higher than it might have been because of the change in the valuation of the assets and the depreciation that was required for Three Waters. So the combination of those two additional costs have masked some of the savings that have been made in the non-water rate.
Councillor Lund.
CEO Graham, I see in paragraph 31 that we have 880 full-time equivalent staff, but you say that there's been a reduction in 61.7 FTEs. So am I right in assuming that and you say this work has been going on over the last 2 years. So does that mean that 2 years ago we had, give or take, 940 staff and now we have 880?
Give or take.
Have you got another question? Okay, thank you. Councillor Chambers.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the standout paragraph in the executive summary is number 5. The proposed Three Waters rates increase from 16 to 16.7% from what was supposed to be 15%, and that's certainly going to be the one which has most impact on our ratepayers. I've sort of worked out why, I think, from reading the whole document. But is it possible to say, perhaps in one sentence, why?
I could try a non-accountant sentence while the accountants think about it. We were required to add additional depreciation funding, and so we put half of it in, I think. Did we put half of it in that year? And so that's the effect it had on the rate, but we were required to do it because we said we would in the Water Services Delivery Plan, and the assets went up in value.
Is that because our assets have been revalued majorly?
Yes, and there was a ding-dong over the level of asset revaluation. That's the number that was settled on by the various parties in that process. We're required to give effect to it. That means an increase in the rate.
Who does the re-evaluation?
Yeah, we contract that out to valuers, and then we have it peer reviewed as part of our annual report process.
And so our auditors reviewed that as well, and so that's where there was a difference in view between our consultants who were doing it and the audit consultants, and they've settled on a number. And it was a difficult process. We are aiming to have more clarity for the 10-year plan budgets on the water valuations. That's right, isn't it? Aiming to have something by March.
So what we're doing different this year is having that valuation process occur 3 months earlier than we normally would. So we'll base it on 31 March because, as the Chief Executive said, we have had issues with the valuation and it runs right into 31 October. It gets quite late in the process that we're dealing with issues. So we've brought forward the time from 30 June to 31 March to start that work.
The challenge for us is the water services delivery plan that was signed off. We have to be in a position to give effect to it if we're to set up our standalone business unit in the time frame that we've said, and that required additional funding from the council to meet the depreciation requirements. Is that sensible? Is that helpful?
Well, it's a bit like Monopoly, isn't it? Where you pick those pink cards. You get those pink cards that say you owe 330. Your assets are worth $331 million more than you thought. I mean, it's crazy. It's wow.
I wouldn't like to describe council finances as like Monopoly, but I would say that this revaluation process has been fraught for a number of years, and what the CFO has described, we're trying to get ahead of it this time to see if we can come up with an agreed number, because it's problematic. It's a sector-wide issue, so this is across the sector. This is happening. We are fortunate enough that we were well enough advanced in our planning around water that the impact was relatively small on the rate. Oh, sorry, I've cut some.
That's all right. If I could just add one thing. The more depreciation that we fund, then the less debt that we're raising. So, yes, it is impacting on ratepayers, but we're raising that much less in debt to fund the capital program in these draft budgets.
So it's daily income pays for daily costs, isn't it? That's the philosophy.
Yes.
Councillor Gary Sims on. Councillor Gary.
Thank you, Worship, and Ding Dong would be a very good description of that particularly fraught period. I just want to go back to commentary earlier around separation, Ms. Allen, and just to check that I've understood this correctly, that separation is not expected, or we're not expected to change the current long-term plan in relation to that, but we are expected to approach the next one in that way. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So we need to demonstrate financial sustainability by 30 June 28. Yes, so when we do our next when we do the 10-year plan, I might just need to get the right terminology for the water services plan, but we have a 10-year plan for council excluding waters, and waters, what is the document called? Yes, we have a water services strategy for waters. Yes, and council are likely to want to see a combined budget, of course, but we're required to do both.
And just for the Chief, has some thought gone into how we might, just going back to various occasions when people believe everything they read on the ODT, just thinking ahead, I've often said that our community has no idea what's coming at them with the water rates. Have we put some thought in about how we communicate that? Because it's very difficult concepts to communicate to our community.
We have put some thought into it, but I think even though we're required to separate it, and we are doing that because of the likely rates capping, which is the real driver for separating it in my mind, I think we should never overlook the fact that regardless of how we say it, it's the same ratepayer paying both. So it's being paid by the same household. So I think that somehow that's an important part of the conversation as well.
Councillor Sims and Councillor Ong.
Thank you, Mayor Barker, and thanks to the staff again. My question, if I can ask my question and then explain why I'm asking, I suppose, but it's from paragraph 10 onwards, and that's the section entitled Financial Strategy. And I noticed that throughout the budget documents, the question that I'm going to ask is that the correct terminology for what is then set out below? And the reason that I'm asking that question is that I looked up the definition of strategy, and a strategy is a plan or method put in place to achieve a goal or a result. And a secondary terminology is it's a long plan for success. Now my question, because I've seen this come up throughout the budget documents saying this fits within our financial strategy, my question is this a strategy or is this a worst scenario?
I'll answer that if I can, Councillor. This is the Council's financial strategy as detailed in the supporting documents to the 9-year plan. So this is a direct reflection of what's in that. Whether or not it meets the definition of strategy that you've articulated, that's for Council to decide. But this is as prescribed in the LGA, and it has all the elements that we are required to have.
So could I then ask you whether you have any difficulty with this being termed a strategy? Because the problem is that rates increases are compounding and debt is compounding. So the financial strategy, so the long-term plan for success, if your rates in 2025 are $4,000, which I believe is about the average, would you agree that your rates in 2029 could be $6,069 and still be within the Council's financial strategy, and by the end of the 9-year period would be $8,275, more than double your current rates, and we would still be within the Council's existing financial strategy?
I'm not going to doubt your numbers, but yes, that I agree that that's what it would mean. But the financial strategy is able to be reviewed as part of each 10-year plan process. It's one of the key underlying documents, and as part of this year's 10-year plan, with the spectre of rates capping and all the various other sector reform, it's my expectation that this council would want to very closely examine its financial strategy, which is a legally required term, and look at what elements in that it wanted to include. The financial strategy then determines what staff build into the budget.
And thank you for answering that, because that's precisely my concern, is that you can then hide behind that strategy and say, well, within your rates have doubled, but we're within strategy, and that's a real concern.
If I might, Mayor, I don't think we hide behind it, but we're required to give effect to it. And so the big debates for this council and for councils around the country is how they balance many of these competing things in their 10-year plan processes. And rates capping changes the landscape. So there are some really difficult conversations that will need to be had as part of that, including levels of service, affordability, as Councillor van der Vis mentioned. But this is a foundation document for the 10-year plan.
And the financial strategy was part of what went out for consultation with the community, wasn't it? So it's easily available.
It is easily available. I think in terms of being really transparent, to Councillor Gary's point, we will need to rethink how we get our community engaged in some of these documents, because they are difficult to read and they're dry. And so it's behoving on all of us to look at how we engage our community so they fully understand the impact of the assumptions that the budgets are built on.
Councillor Ong.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is on a potential scenario of freezing our rate rises as opposed to a 10.5% rate rise that we are projecting. Now that comes into our debt, and I will give the example of our stadium debt, even as we're only looking at and the question is now the group level. Now, our stadium's financial strength, if it were a standalone entity, would be different from that of our council as a group, which is financially stronger and has that credit rating based on its almost certain guarantee in the example for our stadium. Now, in a similar way, our council as a whole is dependent in our credit rating on the Crown fiscal conservatism
Right,
and
is there a
strongest.
question
We,
in there?
we have a
It's-
AAA credit rating.
Don't talk over me.
We have a
Don't talk
AAA
over
credit
me.
rating.
Stop it. So I'm asking you, is there a question in there? I've said that we will be
Okay.
discussing that item on
No,
item
okay,
20.
but this is on the group level.
So it's not time to give a speech, it is
My-
time
my
to
question
ask a
is-
question.
My question is, based on the projected interest costs set forth here in the budget, how much above the equivalent cost for a AAA rated credit rating are we paying? Can you look into that? And can you see how we can reduce
One
this?
question at a time, please.
Can you look at how we can reduce this interest cost very specifically based on that implicit credit rating that our end buyers of our debt see? And that is the AAA credit rating of our Crown.
No. Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions, Councillor Chambers and
Yes, and
Deputy Mayor Lucas?
Yeah, just on page 30, you're looking for major changes in what's proposed compared to what was in the long-term plan. And if you look at the capital expenditure, application of capital funding at the bottom of the page, there seems to be a massive switch from meeting additional demand to improving level of service. Compared to the long-term plan. Is there some simple explanation for that?
Yes, it looks like it's the wrong way round. Thank you, Councillor.
Deputy Mayor Lucas.
Thank you. And just to follow up from Councillor Simms' question, and maybe this is a question for Mr McCullough, in respect to the financial strategy. So when we came up with the financial strategy, you did various models based on councillors, this is my understanding, that we wanted to get to balance the budget and get to a position at the end of the 9 years to repay debt. And that's how we came up with those parameters for the rate increases. Is that correct?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, it was part of the wider decision in terms of how everything was going to fit together, and one of the objectives was to be repaying debt and with expenditure levels, how everything would fit together. Correct.
Thank you. And my other question, I don't know whether we've heard yet, but we have to fully fund depreciation, and there's been no talk going forward whether there will be a requirement as part of our rates cap that we will still be required to fully fund depreciation for all our assets.
Yes, it hasn't been signalled that that section of the Local Government Act will be amended, so that it's still there, as far as we know.
Maybe, Carolyn, you could just explain the bit of the Act that you're referencing in case not all councillors are familiar with the requirement.
Yes, so there is a requirement in the Local Government Act to balance our budget, so that means have an operational surplus. There are sections in the Act that allow you to have an unbalanced budget, so have a deficit, but you need to pass council resolutions to say why you think it's prudent to do so.
Councillor Ong.
Thank you, Worship. I have two questions, and the first question is on the quantum of the most conservative asset classes of investments, such as deposits and fixed income, that we have under the Waipori Fund. And I will ask if you can look at financing secured against those unencumbered assets of the highest level of safety, so that we can have a reduced interest cost in our debt, because that is based on looking at implicit financial guarantee from the Crown and
you've
secure.
asked your question.
Yeah, I'm asking that, and secured against
you've
those
asked
assets.
your question, and the Chief Executive is about to answer it.
You were referencing the Waipori Fund, as we've said a number of times. The SIPO is being redone. That will be your opportunity to put these questions and have that debate about how we structure the investment of the Waipori Fund.
This is on the debt
that's
financing.
in March, isn't it?
It's not on. It's
Your question was about what we do in relation to
No. I will clarify, Chief Executive. My question is innovative debt
Okay,
financing.
no.
We can look at
Okay,
secured.
we'll talk about that when we come to the finances.
But also, Dunedin City Treasury manages our debt for us, and so that's a discussion to have with DCHL, checking with the CFO that that's right, if we want to do anything different in that sphere.
That's correct. We have Dunedin City Treasury Limited. We also have a Treasury risk management policy that governs how they, gives them the parameters for working within. And as we've said, the SIPO for the Wapori Fund is currently under review. Council have asked for that, and DCHL
We have
are
said
looking
that
at
many.
it.
Yes, thank you, Caroline. We have said that many times, and it is very obvious that it is coming up in I think it's March or April, and we will not be allowing any more questions on that today. That will move on. Are there any other questions, Councillor Sims?
Thank you, Ms Sophie. Just very quickly, and this number was given previously, I think, but we've got the rates increase relating to non-water activities of 6.9%. In order for that number to be zero, we would need to find 6.9 multiplied by 2.4 million, so a total of $16.5 million in savings. Is that kind of where we are?
No, the number is slightly different because the non-water rate isn't the 2.4 multiplier. It's something that starts with a 1.
If we on page 29, you'll see what the dollar amounts of those rate increases are. So on page 29, there's a table there that shows in the first section the increase for non-waters rates, which is $10 million, 6.1%. Adding on the stadium, the increase is 11.4 million, 6.9%. So you'd have to save the 11.4 million.
Even better news. So that's what we've got to find. For that number to be zero, we'd have to find 11 million.
That's correct.
Right, Councillor Ong, you can have one more question, but you're already up to, I think it's 6 questions.
Thank you, Your
and they've all
Worship.
been on the same topic.
I will ask Ms Allen, since as CFO, you are looking at our financing. So I will ask that you look at specifically this term, Lombard loan financing. That would be...
No, that's not appropriate. That's not appropriate. Right. Are there any other questions? Therefore, I will move. Just let me find my papers. Oh, yes, thank you. Seconded Deputy Mayor Lucas. The Council adopts the draft 2026-27 operating budgets for the purpose of community engagement as shown/amended at attachments A to H. Notes that any resolution made during this meeting related to the Annual Plan 26-27 reports may be subject to further discussions and decision by the meeting. And we've got a number of new councillors around the room, so I think it's useful to understand the process. This is sort of the covering resolution, and as we go through we may make resolutions on each report, and when we come back we'll do a tidy up. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone. I want to thank the teams who spent a long time working on these budgets and for their presentations today. I support this budget going out for the purpose of community engagement, because it's really important, as we said, for the community to understand what the budget looks like and what the pressures are as well, especially the real cost of water. And I think in the last term and the term before, we had councillors that were signalling that people were going to get a shock when they saw the real cost of delivering water to their homes. And this is reflected in the fact that the real cost of water is up 16.7%, and that's not covering all of the depreciation. Every year, it's not quite every year, but when we get our revaluing figures, they give us a nasty surprise for our depreciation, and that's quite challenging. Commend the staff for getting the non-water rates rise down to 6.9%. I do think we can do better, and on Monday we did have a confidential discussion around about 30 items that will look to help us get there. But I absolutely understand that the community have real cost of living challenges. There's high inflation, which has hit us all, as ratepayers and council trying to create a better city and deliver services. And now, of course, with let's call it a war, happening overseas that's going to impact on a lot of council as well. And I really hope that it ends soon and that the impacts are not too hard on us, because even here in New Zealand we feel these. When we're looking at our rates, we're trying to minimise the effect on residents while we ensure that we keep delivering the things that matter to them, like the magic of turning on the taps and water flowing, driving safely and efficiency through the city, places for recreation, jobs and business sustainability, climate change adaptation, homes for everyone, and addressing those issues which matter to our community. As council, we also need to ensure responsible investment into our city's capital projects and our operations so that we keep delivering great services to our people. And as has been flagged, we will have to have discussions about the levels of service as well and what our community will accept within the budget. I think we know that when we cut the budget for the cutting the verges, then we had an immediate public outcry, and that's going to be some of those hard things, is what people expect for the money that you're getting. Our job is to get the best deal for our residents and create New Zealand's most livable city. And we just won New Zealand's most livable city. I was on the radio a couple of weeks ago. We beat Nelson, and we are the city that Mike Hosking said is what every city in New Zealand should aspire to. So we are doing a good job in delivering those services to our community, and it is recognised nationally. We will have intense work coming up in the next few months. The council itself is going to be looking at its vision and its strategies and its levels of service, so that when we go into our long-term plan, we are equipped with making sure that we have our aspirations for our city, and then of course we have to come against the hard wall of reality when there is an election and the government to negotiate what they are going to do, because local government appears to be a bit of a whipping boy, or whipping person, for central government, and that is very challenging. I'm looking forward to the residents and the organisation submissions, because they're valuable and they provide a snapshot of people's wishes and concerns about the city, which help feed into our planning for our next big budget. But we do have to put the stark reality of what we're facing. We won't be able to have so-called nice to haves, and people will have to be very clear on those. So we have to make sure that we concentrate on engagement and communications with our residents, and that's not only on our staff preparing materials, that's on us as councillors to make sure that we get out there and we tell people what they're getting for value for money. We also need to make sure that people understand how to engage with the system, because it can be sometimes a bit of a wall, and people feel like they're not being heard in council as well. So we need to make sure that people know the process, that they're able to have their voices heard and engage with council. When we're talking about these budgets, we're talking about $5.7 billion worth of assets, in which we have $4.8 billion of equity. Our revenue is forecast at $484 million, and our capex at $233 million. This is not chicken feed that we are talking about. We're talking about real big, serious numbers. And when we think about where our operating costs go, around 51% goes to water, roads and waste, 10% each to community recreation, city properties and governance support. I was at Local Government New Zealand last week with the other metros, and we all know that the environment is really tough. There's some rates rises here, and I haven't got all of them about whether water's in or out. We've got Tauranga 7.5%, Upper Hutt 13.6%, Wellington at 7%, water is out in Wellington, Queenstown 13.6%, they were at 19% and have managed to get it down, Tauranga at 10%, Whangarei at 9.8%. So all around the country, the councils are facing these challenges that we face. The economy in a long recession. I think that the green shoots that everyone was talking about are now probably smothered by the oil prices and the Iran war. It's been a period of high inflation, and we do have that tsunami of government reform and unfunded mandates, and that's going to mean extra work for council to respond, because we get a lot of legal stuff thrown at us and we have to do a lot of work. You just look in the news and you see what Auckland are facing as well. And then we have the impact of the revaluation of assets, which hits our increased depreciation. We have the increase in interest rates as well that affects our costs. We have worked on savings, the staff have worked on savings as well. I'm pleased that they had the increase in water rates balanced off by the general rates as well, trying to find savings there. And there are stresses in every household from increased costs. Every household's got the power, insurance, petrol, food, and rates. That's us. We're subject to those, but similar stresses. We're not buying fruit, meat and veggies. We're buying on the international market. And I think that throughout, I did make some notes, but I'm not going to have time to read them. When we look at the huge percentage increases in things like pool chemicals, road bitumen, pipes and pumps, heavy infrastructure costs, overseas shipping, interest and depreciation. So this is not a household budget. This is a council budget. We also, sometimes I call us the catch-up council, playing catch-up to deal with those systemic past issues. Of course, we're going to have a paper on the stadium. We've got challenges around, in the past, lack of accounting for depreciation, which we've been working really hard to balance out, and then the underinvestment in infrastructure. And this council has worked very, very hard to try and catch up on the infrastructure, especially around the water. We worked really hard on the last long-term plan and the financial strategy to get to a balanced budget position, as we'd added around $100 million to debt due to accounting for depreciation. So when we go forward into the LTP, which we will at the end of this year, we will need to look hard at that financial strategy. And that is the spectre that is there. I think it's in 2029 that this government are planning to put a rates cap of between 2 and 4%. The local government has been working very hard because the complex economic, what would you call it, sum perhaps behind this has been put together to come out with a 2 to 4%, and we can see how councils in Australia have really struggled under the rates cap because they've had to keep making cuts and not being able to deliver the services that the community wants. So those will be really tough conversations that we are going to need to make. We're also going to have to look to make more savings. We have to look at our levels of service. We need to look to increase our income and vary that income as well. Currently, we've got 38% comes from rates, 33% from targeted rates, 2.6% subsidies and grants, 19% fees and charges, 4.6% interest and dividends, and just chucking in 1% fines and fees. But we also need to balance the public and private goods. So when we come to the revenue and financing policy, that will be a good discussion to be able to have. So I hope I've covered off most of what I wish to say, awareness of time, and I will now take speakers. I think that I saw Councillor Halls.
Thank you, Worship. The overview reflects the Council trying to balance affordability with infrastructure reality. I acknowledge the work done to reduce the non-water rates from 8.5 signalling in the 9-year plan to 6.9. That shows discipline. But the 16.7 increase in waters is not just a number on a spreadsheet, it's the price of pipes in the ground. Treatment plants running and compliance obligations we cannot ignore. Water does not negotiate with us. As we move through this annual plan, my focus will be on ensuring that any reductions are structural and sustainable, not simply deferrals that create larger problems later. We also need to look into a much better breakdown on the rates bill, and I will follow up as I've requested getting a much friendlier breakdown in the past.
Thank you. Councillor Lund.
At paragraph 18 of the CEO's report, it talks about cost containment, and that's really the key issue here. We're trimming around the edges. We're not going far enough. At the last election, there were a number of us that got elected because public sentiment said, as Councillor Vandervis has pointed out, that our rates increases, our local government costs have been going up at 3 times the rate of inflation for over 20 years. So we need to make some radical surgery. It cannot just be business as usual. This is a business as usual budget. And it was being said round in this table that we don't really need to worry. We don't need to wait. We've got till 2028 before we have to address the rates cap. I don't agree with that. We need to start now. And we cannot have $1.2 billion of debt in 2034, going up from around 800 at the present time. And so I can't support this budget. What I can support, as Councillor Sims noted earlier, that we should be looking to find it as a very starting point, $11 million in this budget, so that we can have at least a zero rates increase in the non-waters.
Councillor Sims and Councillor Mayhem.
Thank you, Mayor Sophie. Warren Buffett said compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Unfortunately for us, the reverse is true, and compounding rates increases and compounding debt has the same effect. I cannot support this budget. It allows for the doubling of rates and remaining within the Council's financial strategy. It allows for a 50% rates increase by 2029 and remaining within the Council's financial strategy. There are nowhere near enough hard decisions. There's nowhere near enough courage, and there's nowhere near enough hard work gone into making savings. Rates increases are front-loaded, ensuring that the burden on ratepayers compounds throughout the 9-year term. We've just heard that budget savings of just $11 million would drive a zero rates increase net of three waters. That $11 million could be found in an afternoon. We would make some enemies, but 98% of the ratepayers would not notice. I cannot support this budget, and I'm distraught by some of the commentary around it. Thank you.
Councillor Mayhem.
Thank you, Your Worship. In this overview report, highlighted are the budget challenges we face: high inflation, reforms from central government, depreciation, a long recession, Three Waters increase of 16.7% for our delivery of services, but we have managed to reduce that non-water rate to 6.9, down from 8.5. The rates increase did not previously separate out the two, and this at least shows our ratepayers again that the lion's share is on the real cost of delivery of water services, with the unknown factor being stormwater. This is a sector-wide issue around water, and ours is relatively small because at least we're ahead of the trend compared to other councils. But this is from decades of underinvestment. We've lost government support when the Three Waters funding was removed, so now our residents are bearing the full cost of these essential and costly upgrades. Economic factors have been mentioned. Year one has a balanced budget, and everyday costs are funded by everyday revenue. The objective is for us to be repaying our debt at the end of the 9-year plan, and I'm sure that this is what has been asked of us from our community. There are no nice-to-haves in this budget, and I'd like to remind everyone that the rates and fees and charges are the way we fund this. The Council has inherited poor decisions previously made at the table to defer many things over many years. Thank you.
Councillor On.
Thank you, Your Worship. Rates caps are part of Crown reforms that ensure we continue to enjoy the certainty of the AAA credit rating and implicit financial guarantee that our City Council itself in its own credit rating enjoys. And that goes on to the children entities of our City Council, like our stadium, which, if it were a standalone entity, would not have the same credit rating as it enjoys from our City Council. Now, there is a very specific opportunity right here, right now, to reduce the budgeted interest costs by looking at innovative funding methods which are based on the financial strength of our Crown and the multi-billion dollars of assets under our City Council that we ourselves own, and that includes the most conservative risk category of investments we own, such as deposits and fixed income. And it is crucial that when we look at the figures here on our interest charges that are budgeted for, and we look at that 10.5% rate rise that is coming about from interest as part of this, we appreciate we have an opportunity right now to look at how we can prevent that rate rise, how we can potentially freeze that rate rise. And I would say also at the same time, we need to recognize right now there are countrywide economic policies in place that have attracted billions of dollars very specifically in economic investment across our great country. Now, based on my queries, I understand under City Council, we have no staff dedicated to bringing investment into our city. That's something that we need to change, because these same institutional, philanthropic and wealthy investors that are already investing across our country right now are the same investors that buy our Crown's debt securities. And they are the same investors that can buy our City Council's debt and contribute directly to our economy, because as we know and has been well stated, well, we have the highest quality of living in our great country. So it's important right now we recognize that opportunity. We seize on that. And I cannot support this budget.
Councillor Vanders.
Mayor Barker has referred to 30 items of significant cost savings that staff and the Chief Executive have put to us in non-public meetings for our consideration. It was a non-public meeting, I'm not able to itemise them, but they've been referred to by the Mayor, and I think what's important to note is that the majority of councillors didn't support any of them.
I think that was confidential, that it happened in a confidential meeting, so can you please withdraw that? Or whatever your supposition was around the
Okay.
thoughts around the table, please.
I withdraw and apologise. I thought you had put it out there.
I'd only mentioned that we had a meeting and we discussed some items, but
Okay.
nothing else about it.
Right. Mayor Barker has said that we need to confront the hard wall of reality. I think I've got that right. The Mayor has also said that we have to catch up on systemic past issues. And the Mayor has also said we will have to look hard on financial realities. These are all future statements which I think are very long overdue. This budget, as Councillor Lund and Councillor Sims have already suggested, is more business as usual. It's pretty much the anticipated, some years ago now, 10%-ish rates rise. It doesn't confront at all the 2% rates rise that the government has signalled that we are to basically institute within the next 2 years. And in fact, this budget makes impossible the 2% rates rise that we should have been working towards already, and that we could have done had we basically decided that some of the things that we have voted for are in fact nice to haves. Councillor Mayhem has said that there are no nice to haves in this budget. I see this budget as being full of nice to haves. One of them, for instance, being a carbon zero team, when carbon zero is already well established across the organisation. No need for that nice to have. Shouldn't be there. Nice to haves that have been voted for already in the short term have included the Albany Street Cycleway, closing the Queen Street to cars, more peninsula connection funding, quite massive there.
Point of order, Your Worship. The councillor has described the peninsula connection as a nice to have. It is a safety project, not a nice to have.
Thank you. I'll uphold that if you wouldn't mind.
I mind extremely, but I have to.
Okay.
But I have to accept your ruling. The continuing increasing subsidy of the stadium, also another nice to have. It's nice to have a stadium that's fully staffed and open all the time with hardly anything happening in it. So in my view, we continue in the face of reality to ignore the hard wall of reality and to put it as something that we need to deal with in the future. We have needed to deal with it for a long time now, and we haven't. Like Councillor Lund and Councillor Sims, the two most successful business people on council by far.
Excuse me? Excuse me. Point of order. You'll call the
I'll call the point of order,
Thank you.
Your Worship. That is simply disrespectful to other members of council.
I'm going to uphold that point of order because I think there are many successful business people. My family are quite successful business people, so just please stop laughing. It's just rude. Please withdraw and apologise. Righty-ho, Councillor Treadwell.
The Oxford Dictionary defines strategy... No, I'm kidding, I haven't actually looked it up. So the financial strategy enables the operational and capital expenditure of the council. And this budget is informed by the actual outcomes that we aim to achieve. We can't set an arbitrary budget and then try and fit our necessities within it. That's just working backwards, right? So this perverse way of considering our financial strategy is what has driven underinvestment in the city in the past, and ironically created the sharp rises in rates that we're seeing recently. So I think Her Worship the Mayor articulated it well when she described us as a catch-up council. As we often say around this table, none of us want to increase rates. However, none of us want to be governing over a series of Giardia and Campylobacter outbreaks, which is the ultimate outcome, again, of not funding the city properly. Now, this is far from a luxurious budget. Contrary to what absent Councillor Vandervis has stated, by reducing the non-water proportion down to 6-point-something%, this is preparing us for the ridiculous restrictions that are being forecast by central government by bringing us closer to that line, but without going further than they need to. So this is a strategy that guarantees clean drinking water. It helps maintain a city that people want to live in and hopefully settle in. I would also note that we're almost certain to see an incredible increase in fuel prices in the coming years. And I'm saying this to give thought to our more austerity-focused councillors who are eyeing up potential savings in the budget. Consider the savings it can make for our citizens if we give them options to get around the city that don't require paying premiums for fossil fuels. In short, I credit staff for this careful and detailed budget, and I will be supporting it.
Deputy Mayor Lucas.
I'll be brief because what we're doing here is looking at the budget for 26-27 and approving that, which is year 2 of the long-term plan. And I hear Councillor Sims and Councillor Lund in particular frustration because I was exactly in that place 3 years ago, in the fact that you arrive here and you virtually have your hands tied because we're doing the year 2 of the long-term plan, and it felt like there was very little you could do to have an impact to change it, because I too am concerned about the rate rise, and I am one of those councillors who I want to find savings, and I urge councillors as we go forward here is that we're all going to have to put our big person pants on, and we are going to have to make the hard decisions, and we will not be popular because we cannot continue the way that we're doing. You know, if nothing changes, and that's not acceptable. We've heard that the rates cap's coming, but if we have an incredibly low base and then we can only do 2% from there on, we're going to be able to do even less in the future. And I'm frustrated too that I too would love to have a 0% rate increase, but it's a collective decision around this table, and I'll support this budget for going forward for consultation, because we agreed that we weren't going to make huge changes this year. We weren't going to do the special consultative procedure. That in general we agreed that we would just work on year 2 of the budget and the impact that has, and it isn't. It's not the option that I would prefer to have.
Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you. I'd support this going forward for consultation also. And listen, I think I probably speak for everyone saying we're all concerned about rate rises. It's no different to me than my electricity charges, my phone charges, my Netflix charges, my everything charges. Nobody likes rises in paying more money. And I'm just going backwards as well to Councillor Chambers' monopoly analogy. Do be assured that we don't run the council based on community chances and chance cards, thankfully. And please, let's not get into any conversations about free parking spaces, Listen, 0% rate rises sounds great politically, but it comes with huge consequences, as as Councillor Treadwell pointed out. And I think the Mayor mentioned the outcry that occurred when we decided to cut the grass maintenance contract. It was huge for good reason. So if we do want a 0% rate rise, times that by 100 or 1,000, watch and wait. You simply can't cut 11 million bucks and expect everything we hold dear as a city to be done. And Warren Buffett also said, buy funds or shares with the intention of never letting them go. And he's true to his word, because he bought Coca-Cola many, many decades ago and has become a trillionaire on the back of being the largest holder of those shares. But he also said, he said that never let them go. So to me, it's no different that once you decide to invest in your city to a certain level or quality, to let that go or letting it diminish is for me is a certain path to future failure. More broadly, as we know, the current 9-year plan was developed through a comprehensive, I was part of it, planning process, and a number of us were part of that. Therefore, the draft budgets, as the Deputy Mayor alluded to, continue with the financial framework and key priorities that this council has already endorsed. And that, as she said, can be really frustrating. Thanks to our staff, actually, as it's clear they have focused, very clear actually that they focused, and it must have been fraught work actually, on limiting the impact of rising costs by improving internal efficiencies. And I always worry about that terminology because it does come with consequences, and identifying savings while, I guess, juggling to continue to deliver the existing level, existing services at the current standards. And you've heard me talk around this table a lot about visiting the UK last year and seeing how those levels of service have really diminished under rating financial pressures. And as you all have hopefully read, reductions have been achieved in areas where spending can be directly managed. And as we are all very aware, some financial pressures are beyond this council's influence, including updated asset valuations that increase our depreciation expenses. I think it's right that we get on top of that particular issue. Fluctuations in borrowing costs and higher prices for maintenance and utilities such as electricity, gas, and sadly, the ongoing conflict and strife in the Middle East, which will undoubtedly, if it goes on, have massive implications for the current CPI that was 3.1% to December last year. The government's proposed introduction of rates capping will likely restrict this council's ability, all councils' ability to raise revenue through rates. We know that. And it represents a major policy change and, of course, a big challenge to all of us around this table. In light of this, we will need to further review expenditure. We're doing that. Strengthen efficiency efforts. We're doing that. And explore additional revenue options. We're doing that. This paper makes clear that this work is progressing, and it will be addressed through the development of next year's 10-year plan. It is important to note, however, that at this juncture, the government has advised that councils are not expected to reopen or amend their existing long-term plans solely in response to the proposed rate cap. So in finishing, this plan already includes measures to contain spending, including a reduction in external consultancy across the organisation, undoubtedly strategies to respond to these rates limitations will be examined next year as part of a fraught 10-year plan process. Thank you. Sorry for going over time.
Councillor Gary.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. And I want to acknowledge a couple of things to begin with, and if you'll indulge me, Your Worship. There's been many references to the war in the Middle East, and we talk about the financial implications of that, and I acknowledge that, but let's just not forget the human side. We have some of our people in the midst of that, and we have people here, residents of this city, with family in the midst of it. So let's not forget the human side. I just want to start with acknowledging someone that I don't normally pay a lot of attention to, Mayor Brown, who on the radio this morning, in response to Minister Bishop's request for this, that and the next around housing, basically told the government to get lost, perhaps in more expletive terms than I'm using. And he was not of a mind to do what they asked, and suddenly the Minister of Housing was on the radio saying, well, they don't have to do this really, and maybe they could do it a bit later, and so forth. My point is that there's been absolutely no comment this morning, and I feel the need to make it, that we are assuming that the rates cap will go ahead. Now, I'm a realist. I understand we need to prepare for this, and the staff are starting that with the as we look at the long-term plan, and we do have to face that reality. That is true, and there's been lots said about the difficult times we live in, about the legislation before us, about the rising costs, about inflation and so forth. But I want to say that we need to push back on the rates cap because it is unworkable, and we all know that. I also want to push back on this idea of a zero rate rise. We're all ratepayers, and our staff are ratepayers, and we understand that our community are really feeling the pinch with all of the rising costs. We know about that. But I recall when COVID struck, I had a letter from a dear member of the community in which I live, who wrote me a letter to say that he recalled the Depression, his parents went through the Depression, and he recalled the impact of it, and to plead us to have a zero rates rise through COVID. Now, we didn't. We actually invested in our city. That was the right response. It was a careful response. So to those people who are advocating a zero rate rise, be careful what you wish for. It has consequences. And they aren't necessarily wished for consequences. We only have to look at the underinvestment in infrastructure in Wellington and how that looks. And so the councillor who is now absent is the one who was demanding investment in infrastructure, and 50% of our capital expenditure is on Three Waters. And so we need to be very, very careful about how we talk about that possibility. I have said for a long time that our community has absolutely no idea what is coming in terms of the water rates and the requirements of that. They will hear the noise about reform, but most people are too busy surviving and getting on with their lives to connect the dots. And also I've been in conversations with community for many years where people don't connect the services they take for granted with their rates and the increases that in many cases we're required to make. And so turning on their tap, flushing the toilet, making a cup of tea in the morning, they don't think about the fact that those are services that council provides. It is just expected. So yes, we need to be financially prudent, and the courage we need to have is to, while we prepare for the possibility of a rates cap, the courage we need is to push back on this as a city. And just on the comment around zero carbon that one of our esteemed colleagues made, you will remember that in our financial reports, there has been a section on the costs of climate change, the impacts of climate change. Let's not forget that. So we have a balancing act to do. We need to be calm and provide wise governance. And thank you to the staff for assisting us and guiding us along the way.
Councillor Chambers and Councillor Weatherall.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to focus on debt. And if you look at looking at the table on page 34 of the the document. Clearly rates capping is probably coming in, and that's going to really constrain the ability of our officials to bring down debt by raising more rates. But there's a lot of adjustments in this budget compared to the 9-year annual plan, and I'm looking at the fact that it's reduced the amount of debt by $57 million, which I think is pretty impressive. I think that's a reduction is quite impressive, and it's just what we want to see. Some councils talk about debt more than others, but I think all of us would like debt reduced, and this budget seems to do that. So I'll be supporting it.
Councillor Weatherall.
Thank you, Mayor Sophie. Having been frustrated for 3 years, I applaud the comments some councillors have made around not going far enough. However, I also applaud the efforts by our executive team to trim our council's cloth, getting to where the budget sits today. We are on track to get back to a balanced budget, and yes, it will be costly. So I will be supporting this budget, yet I am more than open to debate and vote on the subtractions councillors may wish to present. I also believe we have not gone far enough, because as has been said, this is not a business as usual environment. There are still many nice to haves in this budget, but that is not a criticism of staff, it is a criticism of councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fiso.
Nā koe, Your Worship. I'd just like to echo our colleagues' thanks to the staff for anticipating our concerns, I suppose, and from either side, whether people think it hasn't gone too far or but why we need it. I'd just like to make an observation from outgoing Mayor of the Clutha District, former Mayor Brian Cadogan, who actually made confessions. He wrote confessions in September 2025 in the Southland Press, and basically said he was a staunch champion. He won his what do you call it? His campaign by using rates caps as a cornerstone policy. But he says rate capping, well, he said last September, rate capping is a one-dimensional answer from a bygone age that won't change the actual cost, but will limit council's ability to protect the people we serve. And I just want to make an observation, like, and I've said it before, it's like in the guise of so-called fiscal responsibility, we seem to not acknowledge, well, I don't know, maybe it's just, I don't know if this offends anyone, but I just think we're buying into, like there's been lots of criticism of Minister Casey Costello for maybe being influenced by lobbyists, tobacconists, but I think maybe the central government has been influenced by lobbying from the Taxpayers Union. Like, for me, rates cap is a I don't know, it's a fantasy. And I don't think we should be living in fantasy world.
Thank you. And just a hopefully quick rate of reply, as I know we have our guests from DCHL here. I want to reflect on the election as well, because some councillors have brought it up, and as the person that won the mayoral campaign, and my priorities were very clearly that I wanted to make Dunedin the best place to live in New Zealand, a city that works for everyone. And that is what I hold in my heart when we are having these conversations. I also talked about delivering better value for rates. I didn't talk about cutting rates. I talked about delivering better value. And I want to be very clear about that. Also about boosting economic development. And without the investment in things like that and in our infrastructure and creating a livable city, then it may be death by 1,000 cuts. I just want to go through what people have said. Councillor Hall, thank you for talking about water does not negotiate with us. I thought that was very well put, because when we look at our water costs, just some of them, the sludge removal costs up 6%, the chemical and lab costs up 8.8%, electricity and water 7.8%, insurance 12.8%, interest 17.9%, depreciation 7.4%. Those are really big costs, and then we look at what we've managed to get it down to at 16.7%, but those costs are huge and inflationary on the work that we are doing just to keep the taps on and deliver water to our people. There's also a lot of costs that go into transport. We've got our depreciation up 5.3%, our interest up 16.8%, waste depreciation 22.8%, interest 22.5%, fees and charges that we pay up 8.5%. In our community recreation, our pools, chemicals 15.6%. And in our creative sector, electricity and gas up 10%. So you look at the actual percentages that the costs are going up just to keep things running. So I think that people do need to think about those as well. I have talked about those external factors on us. I have heard the words zero rate increase and what we could find in an afternoon. I think the challenge for us is we're going through the budgets in the next little while, and the budgets were set during the long-term plan last year, and we heard from our community what they wanted, and in the end what they were prepared to pay as well. And I think that if we go back to looking at the statistics on what people wanted for their city and what they were prepared to pay, I did not hear zero from anyone. I heard that people want a go-ahead city that they're proud to live in. We will also be going in consultation on this in March, and people will be very welcome to come and tell us what they think. And then we're going through pre-consultation for the long-term plan in May. And it is our duty to represent our community, to listen to what they want for their city. And I will have my listening ears on and listen very hard to that as well. Councillor Mayhem talked about the pressure on the council and the true cost of water as well. And then Councillor Vandervis talked about the 2 to 4% rates cap, which looks like it could be coming in 2029. And we need to get ourselves in the best position, and part of the best position has been our advocacy. Councillor Gary, you mentioned not standing for it, and Local Government New Zealand has submitted on our behalf to say that the sums behind that rates cap do not take into consideration the work that we actually need to do. And if a rates cap is put on, we will go backwards, because those are not the percentages, as I read out before, that we are subject to. We will be going through the budgets, as I said, in the next couple of days, and all ideas about saving money are very welcome. Business people, which Councillor Vandervis talked about, invest in business. And as my family is a successful business owner, despite the fact that only 2 were mentioned here, business people know that you have to invest in your business to be successful, to have happy customers, to keep them coming back, to win awards, to be internationally recognised. Let's put that out there. And I think, Councillor Trentwell, you talked about having a city that people wanted to live and settle in, and that's really important to us, because if we don't invest in our city, we go backwards. I absolutely take on board what you're saying, Deputy Mayor Lucas. This is hard, it's frustrating, no one wants a rates rise. And we have to be pragmatic about this. It hurts us, it hurts our community. The sums are often eye-watering, and the community will have to decide what sacrifices they are willing to make during the consultation period. And I've run out of time, and I don't want to set a bad example by going over time. So I thank you all for your consideration during this time, and I will put the vote by division.
Councillor Chambers.
Aye.
Councillor Gary.
Aye.
Councillor Hall.
Aye.
Councillor Lefiso.
Aye.
Councillor Lucas.
Aye.
Councillor Lund.
No.
Councillor Mayhem.
Aye.
Councillor Ong.
No.
Councillor Sims.
No.
Councillor Treadwell.
Aye.
Councillor Walker.
Aye.
Councillor Weatherall.
Aye.
Mayor Sophie.
Aye.
Carried 10-3.
Thank you. We will now welcome the Dunedin Stadium Property Limited debt repayment options. I have Ms. Caroline Allen, Mr. Tim Lone, and Mr. David O'Malley coming up. Page 189. Welcome. Do you have any opening comments, or are you happy to go to questions?
Thank you, Mayor Sophie. We're happy to go straight to questions.
Councillor Lund.
Can you please tell me what comprises the $1.3 million in membership costs in the stadium accounts?
Sorry, Peter, I may need to... No, we don't have an answer. That's what I was thinking, yeah. So that will be within Dunedin Venues Management as opposed to Dunedin Stadium Property.
My mistake.
Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Lucas and Councillor Ong.
Thank you. Mr. O'Malley, I know that you're new on Dunedin Stadium Properties. And maybe about a year. So I'm sure now you've had a chance to have a good look over the stadium and look at the maintenance plans and what's been done and what's planned for the future. And just maybe you could just give us an update that you're comfortable where, that there's been appropriate maintenance done in the past and that the maintenance plans in place are, appropriate. You need to turn the microphone on, yes.
Thank you for your question. Look, I've been involved for probably less than a year, but I have reviewed the asset management plan in terms of the ongoing maintenance, and I think it's a well-researched document. Now, there will always be surprises that arise, but from my perspective, it has been implemented as advised, and it's certainly in my role as chair, as I am reviewing that constantly with DVML to firstly work out, do we really need to do that, or can we do this somehow differently? But from my perspective, I'm very comfortable with the asset management plan, and I think that provides a good blueprint for the future. One aspect we have been looking at is obviously the life of the roof, and it appears that the life of the roof may well last longer than people are anticipating, provided we keep maintaining it. So certainly that's an aspect we are working on.
Councillor Ong.
Thank you, Your Worship. Now, it's clear and widely reported on the debt of our stadium, which has been declared financially unsustainable under its current model, to quote. What has been looked at or will be looked at going forward in terms of inter-council company entities coming into on-lend to the stadium based on their own financial extra capacity? And
just one question at a time, please.
Yeah.
Was that a question? Okay.
So all of the lending for the council companies is managed through Dunedin City Treasury. We have funding facilities in place with each of the companies. In terms of where the companies can contribute to the stadium, that's in the form of subvention payments. And so we're using those to the maximum extent that we can to provide additional funding through to the stadium, which is done in a tax efficient manner.
so in the context that the stadium itself, it enjoys a credit rating which is very specific to our council's overall financial strength, and not the stadium as a standalone itself, which is of much lower financial strength if it had a standalone credit rating. How best do you see that we can use the tools or other entities to reduce that debt level itself of the stadium by having an intercompany council loan? And how do you see potentially we can look at innovative debt
Just
structures?
one question at a time, please.
Yeah.
So we believe the structure that we have in place at the moment is most efficient. We are utilising other companies within the group to assist with that structure. There are no changes that we are recommending in relation to that.
Do you think between group entities at the moment it is optimized in terms of the possible coordination of how they can cooperate to grow the revenue of the stadium and at the same time really take on some of the financial burden of the stadium itself? And can you look at...
Just one question
Yes.
at a time, please.
As I've said, we're comfortable with the structure that it's in place. We believe that is optimised, and there aren't other initiatives that we're looking at to utilise the group to help with the stadium's debt.
Okay, but given that there is very truly, I mean, we can see it, there is an immediate debt requirement on the stadium itself versus the revenue. It needs to be addressed. Can you look further into that? And can you look at...
Just one moment. That's what this paper is about, is around the stadium debt. So if you read it carefully, it explains that this paper is around the stadium debt and asks us to make a decision around it. Now, there's Councillor Lund and Councillor Sims.
Mr. O'Malley, in paragraph 22, it says that the key assumption around this proposal is that the economic life of the stadium is estimated to be 50 years. Now, it was finished in 2010, 2011, 2060. In your opinion, as an engineer, is there any reason that with maintenance this won't last for 90 or 100 years?
Thank you, Councillor Lund. 50 years is the building code requirement, and that's the minimum any building's required to design for. But in reality, buildings last a lot longer with good maintenance, preventative maintenance. So my view is that the stadium has got a lot longer life than what may exist in an accounting assessment, provided it's well maintained.
Would it not be prudent then to have a range of scenarios rather than just this minimum building? We can all look around Dunedin and see that most of our buildings in the CBD are probably getting near 100 years old, or certainly a large number of them. And that would make a very material difference to this proposal if we were considering a 100-year life. My next question is just around the value of the land, which is estimated to be $51 million in 2060. Do we have an idea? Can you please tell me what the area of the land parcels are for the stadium?
Councillor Lund, I would have to investigate that in terms of the area and report back.
Thank you. And if we could also, perhaps from council, I'm curious to know what the current rated amount for the land would be, because it says at paragraph 17 that the land was rated, the rates established for the lands, and I'm presuming it said as if the stadium were never built, so I'm assuming it's kind of a bare land situation, or maybe it's got services, is at 134,000. That would seem to me, but I'd like some clarity, that to be a severe under-recovery.
I can take that, Councillor. So that is the amount of total rates that we were collecting at the time the stadium was built from the sites.
But it's only been, it says it's been indexed, and can I assume that would be the CPI index, or would that be the rate increase index?
Yes, it's been indexed by the local government cost index.
Would that broadly be in line with the rates increase?
No, it would be lower.
So there could be, over the 15-year period, we could have quite a significant difference between what current rates would be and what it is now.
Correct.
Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Ms. Sophie. I'm just looking at paragraph 16, and in fact a few paragraphs there that sort of list out the various amounts that the council contributes towards the operation of the stadium, but focusing in on the Events Attraction Fund of $2.05 million per annum. I'm just trying to understand whether, and that's a reasonable quantum, if we don't attract any events, is our cost zero, or is this an ongoing cost to employ roving agents to try and find events, or what's the breakdown there?
Yes, so my understanding is that money is only available for the attraction of events. So if there's no events attracted, then there would be no money given by council for event attraction. I believe that's correct, yes.
And is it, this might be an operational question that you may not know, but is it true that the New Zealand Rugby Football Union are now asking for upfront payments in return for Category 1 tests?
That may well be true. I don't know off the top of my head, but it would not surprise me if that was the case. Yeah.
You finished? Okay. Councillor Hall and Councillor Ong.
Correct me if I am wrong. It is not reopening the stadium decision, changing ownership, proposing a sale, closing it, increasing a capacity, or rebuilding it. We're talking about option 1 and option 2. Is option 1 significantly better than option 2?
So option 1 is better in the sense that the level of debt and therefore the interest incurred for Dunedin Stadium properties is lower. But both options result in a debt level at the 2060 period, which is at or below the estimated value of the land.
Councillor Ong.
Thank you, Your Worship. It may or may not be clear to some that you can look at debt structuring as opposed to a rate rise, and debt structuring that staggers out the interest payments or pushes out the principal and the interest payment in the coming years to instead be at maturity or at a later period of time, so that this can be funded through innovative debt structures. Can you look into that?
We can provide a response on that.
Right, are there any more questions? Oh, sorry, I had you on my list. Councillor Walker, yeah, I did look at you, I wrote you down.
Looked at me and ignored me. Thank you.
I didn't, I wrote you down.
Joking. Yeah, a question that's not, I don't think it was in the papers, but can you tell me, and ignore it if it's commercially sensitive, how long does the agreement, naming rights agreement, sit with Forsyth Bar? And this is the part that might be confidential. Are those, is that the amount significant or not?
To be honest, Councillor Walker, I'm not sure how much longer that agreement's got to go. 2031? Okay, so that expires in 2031. It's an important sponsorship agreement for the stadium. Yep.
Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Mayor Sophie. And Mr. Lone, I'm trying to open the door for you here. Here a bit with little bits of support here and there. In your view, is it time for a gloves-off conversation between the council and the community and DCHL as to the future of the stadium?
Look, I suspect that may happen as you move into consultation. What we're proposing here is not, I think, unexpected from our perspective. So the stadium was built in 2010, 2011. The funding has changed over time for the stadium as the environment in which we operate changes. So what we've really worked with council on is presenting a model that is evolving as time goes on to the changing economic and the changing events environment that we're in. Personally, I don't think we need to go to a gloves off situation, but as I say, that may well happen as you move into consultation.
Councillor Ong.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can you look at, as a form of innovative debt structuring, a zero coupon interest, principal and interest paid?
Just one moment, Councillor Ong. I think you keep asking the same question
No,
in
no,
different ways, and I think
this
that you
is a
need
very
to.
specific
No, I
question.
think you need to concentrate. Don't interrupt me. You need to concentrate on the paper in front of us and the options that are in front of us. Councillor Lund, you had your hand up.
In the Ernst & Young report, it talked about that there are a maximum of 140 events a year, including 36 events, and I think there were 7 Tier 1 to Tier 3 events in the last 5 years.
Sorry, point of order. I'm just seeking direction from the Mayor here about the confidentiality of said report. Sorry.
The Ernst & Young.
I would have to check, but my view, I thought that report was still confidential.
Yes, it is.
And I guess you're the wrong people to ask because you're DSPL, not DVML. But isn't it true that it's widely known that every single event that is run generally runs at a loss? There's never for major events.
Well, we do have oversight over DVML as well, and I can report that that's not the case. There are events that do return a profit, but the analysis shows that the majority of stadium events, and not just related to Forsyth Bar, but this is relevant for stadiums around the country and around the world, majority of events don't run at a profit.
But what I would add is that's at the stadium entity level, the economic benefit that flows to the city and various of the businesses, especially hospo and accommodation, does mean that the city do well out of events, even if the stadium isn't necessarily making money.
That is true, but the parameters for the event funding, as I understand it, mean that you have to have a factor of 15 to the actual benefit to the city versus the event raised. And with the increasing costs of events, and as Councillor Sims alluded to, it's my understanding as well that the NZRU are wanting extremely substantial upfront fees, and it's unlikely we're ever going to see many of those sort of events again. So would it surprise you if I said to you that every time we open the doors to the stadium it costs around about $45,000 to $50,000, including every event?
I think that there's the 6 monthly reports coming to they were emailed through at 9:56 a.m. and I think that will actually provide some useful background. We'll just get back to the debt repayment options. Does anyone have any more questions on those? Therefore, Deputy Mayor Lucas has indicated she'll move, and I second.
Thank you, Mayor Sophie. Yes, I would like to move option 1 as in the paper. And much and all as it actually sticks in my throat to move this is, putting more funding on our ratepayers. And I was one back in the day when the stadium was proposed, saying what a fantastic asset, but our city are going to struggle to afford it. And I think this decision today is, and as we talked earlier, resolution that is the previous decisions of council coming home to roost. And as the paper says, the current financial model is unsustainable for the stadium going forward, and that we need to do something about it. And the longer we put it off, I've sat around this table and wanted debt repayment plans for council and for our companies, and I think this is the beginning of looking at that debt repayment plan, that we need to start paying down the debt, as we talked about here, that the level of debt and are lower, and along with the interest costs are lower. It's about, I think in the paper we talks about affordability along with the estimated level of debt and the estimated fair value in 2060, and that's why option 1 is a better option. And we heard from Mr O'Malley about the longer life of the stadium if it's well maintained. And I have great comfort knowing that Mr O'Malley is there as the chair of Dunedin Stadium Property, and with his engineering and extensive background, they will make sure that the stadium is extremely well maintained and that will get as long a life as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Weatherall.
Thank you, Mayor Sophie. Let's face it, the majority support the stadium along with the decision made by our forebearers to build it. This budget is simply a suck-it-up moment, as all stadium budgets have been since its inception. Today is all about the budget to keep it open and operating, not options for its future use. Although I do think we should keep an open mind looking forward. The Ernst & Young report highlighted to me the need to remove our heads from the sand and finally start to address the stadium debt, because if we don't, we will have a worn-out facility come 2060 with the original building debt owing, having paid horrific interest over its life. It would be negligent not to support option 1, and if we don't, we will be responsible for its inevitable insolvency of the facility down the track. We have no other option. Thank you.
Councillor Lund.
I should add to councillors that we can be very confident that it's going to last a lot longer than that, because my company built the North Stand and had a very big hand in the South Stand. So I can put my hand on my heart and say that there is a lifespan. But at paragraph 19 of the report, it says that Forsyth Bar Stadium is a strategic asset that has a current and future, plays a critical role in the current and future well-being of the community. Now, I would say that's not right. What it is in fact a strategic liability that promotes in the main the future well-being of the rugby community, and that future is coming to an end, and we need to have, as hopefully we will have this year, a hard conversation about the future of the stadium, about the uses of the stadium, and about how we can repurpose it, as has been done with other venues around New Zealand, to try and create a much more intensive use. And I do not support any debt proposal at this point until we have a better and gone to the community and a master plan about how we're going to make this facility, which owes us $84.6 million, buzzing from 7 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. Now, a couple of things that council should be aware of, and that is that the IRB now allow artificial turf on games that international rugby test can be played upon. That opens the door for a massive increase in community use. So I think councillors will get more information on that in the coming months. But like I said, a change has to come. The future use, or the original intended use of the stadium as a rugby stadium with the occasional concert, which is not a well designed for concerts, is now no longer feasible. And there are, we talked about the Ernst & Young report, but we know that is a statement of fact.
I've got Councillors Hall, Chambers, Sims, Walker, Gary. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Worship. This report is not about revisiting the decisions to build the stadium. It is about responsibly managing the debt that already exists, not where we borrow it from, or it is not about relitigating past choices. We will be talking about that soon, but not today. Option 1 provides a balanced and measured pathway. It increases support in a staged way, allowing us to strengthen the stadium's balance sheet without placing unnecessary pressure on ratepayers in a single year. A structured repayment plan gives us certainty, improves transparency, and reduces long-term financial risk. Option 1 strikes the right balance between financial discipline and affordability. It demonstrates that we are prepared to meet our obligations, but we will do so in a way that recognises the broader pressures facing our community.
Councillor Chambers, then Councillor Sims.
Yeah, thank you. I was just here sitting thinking what sounds best, Lund Stadium or Sim Stadium. There's possible choices for the future, but I think this is all about debt, paying debt, and I think if you have debt, you can either hope that some benign person or some benign company will come along and charge you lower interest and take your debt over for you. Those deals never seem to work out, or you can pay your debt off. And this is a plan to reduce the debt of the stadium and substantially. So therefore, I'll be supporting the motion.
Councillor Sims.
Welcome to the House of Pain. Where's Councillor Ackland when we need him? I'm finding this really difficult because I think we need to do what we need to do, but I also think that once again this doesn't go anywhere near far enough in prompting an honest and open conversation with the community about the future and the usage of this community asset. We've got it, we may as well use it, and we have to get far greater value from this stadium than what we're getting. We can't send it back, we can't pull it to bits and send it back. I'm really conflicted with the just ever increasing amount of money that we're tipping into this in the absence of a plan to get much greater community benefit from this asset, and it's that bit that I'm disappointed is missing, but I'm encouraged by the fact that that will come. Thank you.
Councillor Walker, then Councillor Gary.
Yeah, thanks. If we are going to name the stadium, if it's going to be artificial turf, it might have to be the Treadwell Stadium, but there we go. Listen, this is a painful paper for me to read, actually, because I think we've probably all seen we're sort of between a rock and a hard place on this one. I was always perplexed back in the days when the controversy around building it was front and centre of everything, including the ODT. I was always perplexed why private business and entrepreneurs, the biggest advocates to build the stadium, didn't just go ahead and build it themselves and extract the profit, but now I know why they didn't want to invest. Listen, we have an asset. I've said many times, I'm a realist. And probably like the Deputy Mayor, it pains me a wee bit to burden the community further here, but we do, as I say, we have the asset. So we need to invest to extract the best we can for everyone. In the perfect world, there'd be no better way than getting more A/B tests, getting Kylie to fly over, getting Taylor Swift to turn up. But more realistically, in the light of that, probably certainly in the A/B test scenario, is not going to happen so much. More realistically, we need to work to get the place buzzing, and I think we're all probably in agreement around that, and that's probably with more smaller regular gigs, more events, different sports, using the space more cleverly, and activating it more cleverly for the whole community, because after all, the whole community has paid for this. And it exists there, and mostly we're proud of it, actually. I cycle or drive past it every day, and I still fondly look at it and pray that the roof is okay. I do have faith in Mr. Dawn and his team. He comes to us and reports to us, and I am excited by some of the things that are in the wind. So I'm prepared to support this, put my faith in him and the wider team, actually, to fulfill the goal and make the best of this thing we have.
Councillor Gary.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to start by acknowledging Mr. Lone and Mr. O'Malley. Thank you for your comments. They were most helpful, and for this report. Perhaps a little known fact, way back when the stadium debate was happening, I was either deputy or chair of the community board on the Otago Peninsula, and I remember how opposed I was to the stadium and hugely hacked off when the funding of that paid to the completion of the Peninsula connection to our Otago. It's a bit of an irony. So I don't like being in this position today, personally. It It's a kind of a told you so moment, and it sticks in my craw. However, having said all of that, we have it, and I've long accepted that, and it's an asset. And it has an economic impact. When things are going well, it has an economic impact, a positive one, on our community. Think of the two Ed Sheeran concerts and what they did for the city. And we're in different times. The landscape has changed. That is true. But we do need to maintain it. And thank you, Mr. O'Malley, for your comments around that. We do need to maintain it. We need to make sure it lasts for as long as possible. And this is where our wise governance comes in. Even though we might like it, the financially prudent thing to be doing today, this is what we're talking about as a debt repayment, is to start and have a plan to pay off that debt in a more aggressive way. We're not today deciding on what we're going to do in the future to make it busier. That will be a conversation at some other point. And, I take on board the comments made around the table about that, but that's not what we're focusing on today. So, very happy to support this. It's financially prudent and it's wise governance.
Councillor Ong, then Treadwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I would say on Councillor Walker's point that the stadium could be called Treadwell Stadium. Yes, it could be called financially Treadwell Stadium. Now, our stadium has ever-increasing debt. We know that well. There is not enough expenditure to fund it. It is in the same way a lot of other things that we see across at the moment. We need the innovation and we need the economic development to grow the revenue for each of our council entities so that we are not having to go to our ratepayers and say we want to increase rates by 10.5%. So, as has been rightly highlighted, we are the most special city. We have the highest quality of living. It has been well publicized in the media a few weeks ago. Clearly, we need to coordinate further and optimize amongst the different council entities, because when we think about, there are billions of dollars in economic investment from Crown economic policies in the past year. It has been well publicized that have come across our country. And it's also based on queries. It has been put forth to me, we do not have any dedicated staff in our economic unit that is focused on investment for our city.
Councillor Ong, could you please keep to topic? The
I
topic
am.
is the
If we
stadium
look at it
debt,
in the same way,
not the
no,
investment.
but this is the broader point of how we can reflect how special our city is in bringing more revenue to our stadium. And in the same way, we have an international airport now. When we have more of the international flights coming in the years to come, that is going to support our stadium. When we have the possible CCO of Enterprise Dunedin that's being looked at, that is also going to grow the revenue of our stadium. And that is really saying everything else is coming. The revenue here for our stadium is not sufficient for what it needs in our debt. And it's very clear, economic development first for the stadium will grow its revenue. Then it comes to the innovation that's already in place.
So can I just understand, are you going to support the motion?
I'm not going to support the motion, no.
Oh, okay,
because
thank you.
it's
If you clarified
asking,
that would be helpful.
It's asking our ratepayers for the rate rise. Whereas now there is the innovation that the stadium already has. What is that innovation? Its debt is already based on the credit rating of our council, which is financially stronger than the stadium itself. So the stadium has very clearly been financially subsidized in its interest costs simply because of the financial strength which is much stronger of our council as a whole. And in turn, our council as a whole itself, because it has had more outgoings and incomings, is supported by the implicit financial guarantee of our parent, the Crown, which is a AAA credit rating. So that innovation from the top all the way down to our stadium is already there. in that point. Then it's for us to say, on the debt structuring side of things that we are looking at, we already enjoy this innovation. Now, how best can we go about structuring it, once again, in innovative ways that have not been done before to relieve that immediate interest burden on the stadium, and when we have that runway of breathing space for the stadium, well, we have a lot of things that are coming up to grow the revenue of the stadium going forward, and more broadly, the economic development for our city as well.
Thank you. Councillor Treadwell.
Tēnā koe, Your Worship. I'd like to repeat the thanks to Mr. O'Malley and the team. I know how complicated these kind of things are to calculate, and I really appreciate the report. But talk about a bitter pill, eh? I think I'm echoing the opinion around the table. We can't really countenance not having a stadium as a city, and so I trust in our colleagues that this is the most sort of fiscally responsible way forward. But you can't help but think about, you know, what a renaissance it would be if we could spend a fraction of this kind of money on our performing arts. Yeah, so I will be supporting this motion. Kia ora.
Thank you, and I do agree with the Deputy Mayor who talked about a suck-it-up moment. I recall way back when people were coming around talking about the stadium, and I was against it at the time. Other members of my family were for it, and it's very tough on us. We look at Christchurch building their stadium, and they've got huge chunks of government money, and it's a pity that we went ahead at the time and did it. But now we have it. I think, as Councillor Sim said, welcome to the House of Pain, and it has been a pain for a very long time. We have it. We have to look after it. We have no other choice. The advantages of this option are that certainty for the future of the stadium through to 2060 and preservation of the strategic asset, and it is a strategic asset. We have to make sure that we look after it, that we can maintain our asset, renewals, look after that roof. We also need to make sure we've got headroom for unanticipated expenditure requirements, which maybe the roof, we don't know, and the reduced interest expense, which I think is key as well. I agree that there's a lot of money going into here, and I think that we definitely need to look at that. I think that we need to look at our economic development strategy and our event strategy in relation to the stadium. When we look at how much money we spend buying events in, I think we should look very close at home, as many councils have brought up, about creating and investing in our homegrown events. And I'll give an example is the Nature Dome of Wild Dunedin, which was wildly successful last year and is happening again this year. This brings thousands of people, thousands of the community and visitors from out of town in to use the stadium. It's a really good event. It's homegrown, and I think that we need to think about, as councillors have brought up, what is our strategy around actually making sure that we get the best use from this asset. So I'll hand back to you for your right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor Sophie. And I think if colleagues haven't read today's ODT editorial, I think they must have been listening around the table, and I think they have picked up the sentiment of the community. Where they start off by saying the day was always going to come when Dunedin Stadium would start costing city ratepayers more. And then they talk about it doesn't mean it has become a white elephant for the city. Far from it. The stadium remains of significant strategic benefit for the local community and for the south more widely. It's an excellent editorial, talks about a lot of different things, and it also says keeping a lid on extra borrowing and debt repayment is also crucial to ensure the level of lending stays below the expected fair value of the stadium land. And the key point, I think, is that if I hear from my colleagues, is the reality is we have the stadium and we have to make it pay its way rather than view the ratepayers' pockets as bottomless. And I think we all are looking forward to some rigorous debate with our colleagues at DVML, and I too have faith in Mr. Dawn, and he brings a lot of energy, and talking to him brings a lot of excitement about the potential of the stadium. And I think we need to make sure we're not setting the stadium up to fail, and that's what this helps to correct. And a really tough bitter pill to swallow.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
No on record.
Against? No. Okay.
No and record, please.
Abstentions? That is carried. Now, we have 15 minutes left because we do need to finish at 1 p.m. The next item is item 7 around water. So if we were to start, we would have 15 minutes of questions. No chance everyone's nodding their head, so I will move that we adjourn the meeting until 9 a.m. tomorrow, seconded Deputy Mayor Lucas. All those in favour say aye. Against? That is carried, and we shall see everyone bright and fresh at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Now, councillors, just if you have questions about specific budget papers,